Jason Lewis is a columnist with the Star Tribune, and Jehmu Greene is a former president of the Women's Media Center and a Fox News contributor. So now, Jason, folks are saying this was a dangerous thing for the president to do because he, came dangerously close to endorsing what they're doing in their cause, and we've seen 700 arrests take place during the course of these protests.
Yeah, it's like Athens coming to America. I mean, the public unions are behind this, workingamerica.org, Fund for the Public Interest, AFL-CIO, United Federation of Teachers. And they're just saying, look, we're part of the entitlement society. We want all our debt forgiven. We want free college. We want a ban on all credit reporting agencies. The demands here are quite radical. So I think you're right. Not to mention some of the criminal activity that may be happening. The president is getting out there on a populist limb, and instead of embracing real solutions and looking at how the government created this debt crisis, they're trying to change the narrative and blaming, quite frankly, Wall Street or the market or anybody else they can find.
Jehmu, is there some hypocrisy by Democrats here? Because, we see the president saying what he said. Now we see Nancy Pelosi getting behind them. And we know that these groups out there are being, in some instances, paid to go out there, that the SEIU is actually organizing these things. So it is very organized. And yet, look what Nancy Pelosi said about this group versus what she said about the Tea Party back when it was first forming. Watch this.
The message of the protesters is a message for establishment every place. The focus is on Wall Street, and justifiably so. God bless them for their spontaneity. It's an independent people coming. It's young, it's spontaneous, it's focused, and it's going to be effective.
There's a legitimate grassroots opposition. What's going on? There's an AstroTurf type of protest.
I think they're AstroTurf. You be the judge.
So the Tea Party, Jehmu, they're AstroTurf, but these protesters, this is legitimate, and thank God for them, and they're spontaneous and so on.
Megan, there is a lot of hypocrisy to go around. I think you've heard many conservative commentators talk about how the Tea Party is basically a godsend and these young progressive activists are a menace to society. But I think it's less about the hypocrisy and more about who are you blaming? When you look at what the Tea Party has stood for, they've basically blamed the government for everything that's gone wrong with the financial crisis. And this round of protests, these activists are blaming Wall Street. They're actually blaming the people who caused the problem. And this probably will end up helping Obama, but at the end of the day, I think many of the protesters are just as mad at the president as they are at Wall Street because they feel he hasn't been tough enough on them.
Is there hypocrisy on both sides, Jason? I mean, obviously, Ms. Pelosi has flipped her position when it comes to protests in the street, but some are saying that conservatives have also flipped their position where they cheered the Tea Party. They now condemn these groups.
No, there's a fundamental dichotomy here. The Tea Party protests came out of TARP bailouts. The Tea Party types were protesting in favor of more freedom, more markets, less government. This group is demanding debt forgiveness. They're demanding free college education. They're demanding a living wage without employment. Go figure that one. So what they're demanding is for more government, and the Tea Party was demanding less. I mean, that is a huge paradigm shift. And I think changing the narrative is the real goal here. The fact of the matter is, government did create this debt crisis. You had affordable housing mandates coming from the CRA Act of 1977. You had the GSE Act of 1992, and the demand that Fannie and Freddie buy secondary mortgages only if they're affordable. Well, guess what? That told the lenders, you better go out and make bad loans, no down payments, or else you'll be accused of redlining. So the government policies that created this crisis are now on the back burner, and we're blaming the people that followed them. That doesn't make much sense to me.
Jehmu, the criticism of these groups is that they're anti-capitalist. You may not like what Wall Street did, but, to protest Wall Street and the existence of successful corporations and, investors in general, the accusation is anti-American.
I think it's less about the protesting the existence of corporations, Megan, and actually protesting the influence of corporations. When you look at the super committee and the folks who have been appointed to it, they've received over $41 million from the financial sector. And that's, on both sides of the aisle. These protesters are absolutely right to be up in arms with a system that has continued to build a wealth gap in this country. When folks talk about class warfare has been going on for 30 years. So it's about time that you see folks on the streets really pointing the finger at the folks who have been contributing significantly to income inequality in this country, when we've got record numbers of people in poverty, but the folks on Wall Street are making record profits, their record bonuses. This is way past due, and I think the American people, if you look at poll after poll, Megan, the American people, 2/3 of the American people feel that corporations and Wall Street has way too much influence on politics. That's what these young folks are standing up for.
But influence on politics,
then
that's a different
eliminate
question
Fannie and Freddie.
from the narrative that they're making too much money, income inequality. Why is the answer to that to make the rich have less, as opposed to, to help the poor have more, Jason?
Well, the income inequality debate is ridiculous. In the Great Depression, income inequality shrunk because the wealthy were jumping out of buildings. They lost all their fortune, and the poor can only go so far, quite frankly. So in a depression, income inequality shrinks. In a growing economy, when you have everybody doing better, but a few people really doing well, the memory of Steve Jobs comes to mind, why then income inequality expands. And that's a bad thing when everybody's doing well, but some people are doing really well.
Who's everybody?
That's called prosperity, Jason, and growth.
Last word, Jamoon.
Who is everybody? The reality is that most folks are doing not as well. Wages are decreasing, and a very small percentage of people, that's why they're talking about that they are the 99%, that when productivity increases and wages decrease, there's a problem with that. I'm not in favor of the strong message anti-capitalism, but actually holding those responsible for actually getting us as close to the Great Depression.
Oh, the ones who gamed
in
the
2008.
system.
They totally gamed the system.
It
They're finally
was the
pointing
mother
the
of all
fingers at the
stimulus
right
packages,
culprits.
housing, that caused this Great Depression. It was a buildup in
there
debt
was
caused
some
by
funny business
government
going on
policy.
with the credit default swaps. I think we can all agree on that. I mean, Wall Street, Anyway, okay, we got to leave it at that, guys. But thank you. Good debate, Jason and Jamoon.